Okay, so I wanted to demonstrate the slot machine program. Now the book has you create a slot machine program where the user can spin a slot machine and he gets 3 random values from 0 through 9. So they're basically just simulating a slot machine. Now I added additional instructions to that homework problem because I want you to use an object-oriented approach to this. So the book would just have you come into the driver class and do all the logic inside of the driver class. And I think that's kind of the wrong approach considering that we just went over chapter 4 and we want to start thinking in terms of objects. So the best approach to doing this is to make your slot machine its own object. And then the slot machine is basically going to manage 3 slot objects. So if you look at the instructions in the book and you do it the way the book wants you to do it, you can pretty much just put all your logic inside of your driver class. So all your logic would go in here. Thinking in terms of objects, so taking more of an object-oriented approach to this is a better idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate the actual slot machine from the driver class. And then the slot machine is essentially just going to manage 3 slot objects. So you can kind of think of this as the pair of dice that we did, where the pair of dice had 2 die objects. So the slot machine is going to have 3 slot objects. So I'm going to go ahead and make this class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create instance data for a value. And then I'm going to have a spin method, which is randomly going to set the value from 0 through 9. And another thing I want to do is override the equals method so I can compare one slot to another. So here's my slot object. It's pretty simple. I have a value which is going to hold a 0 through 9. Then I have a getter defined, which is going to return the value of the slot. Now I don't have a setter because I don't want anybody to set this value to whatever they want. So the only real way to set this is to spin. And when we spin, we're going to randomly set the value between 0 and 9. And then I have an equals method because I do want to compare one slot to another. So whenever we do that comparison, I'm basically just checking to see if the object is an instance of the slot. And then I'm just comparing the face values. So what I did right here, instead of creating a variable that's going to hold this casted object, I just casted the object in place and then I just grabbed the value. Now we should implement the toString because that's a requirement that I have for all my homework, but I'm going to leave that up to you. So now what I want to do is I want to come into the slot machine object and I want to go ahead and set up this slot objects that it's going to manage. Alright, so I created my slot machine class. So what I did is I declared 3 slot objects, and then inside of my constructor is where I instantiate those 3 slot objects. Then I made a method spin, and in the spin method, I just spin each individual slot object, and I have a method display. Now what display is just a string, right? So I'm just returning a string here. So here's my return statement, but I'm passing out the values of each slot. So I'm trying to simulate the way the face is of a slot machine, where you have the 3 different symbols, but in this case, we're going to see like 0 through 9. For each one of these slots. Then I have a method called jackpot, which returns a Boolean value if all 3 slot objects are equal to each other. So what I'm doing is I'm checking to see if slot 1 equals slot 2 and slot 1 is equal to slot 3. If this is true, that means that they're all equal to each other. Now there's more that we have to do to the slot machine object per the instructions that I have on the homework, but I'm going to leave that up to you. So here's my driver class. So inside the driver class, we should be prompting the user if he wants to play, and we're going to allow him to spin, and he's going to keep spinning, and we're going to let him know if he got 2 of a kind or if he hit the jackpot. But for the purposes of testing this, I'm going to make a loop that's just going to run until we hit a jackpot. So here's my driver class. I instantiated a slot machine, and then I created a variable called num of spins, and I set it equal to 0, and then I go into a do while loop. Now the condition for this do loop is I'm going to stay in this loop while I haven't hit the jackpot. So inside of my do loop, I spin, then I increment the number of spins, then I print out the display of the slot machine. So let's go ahead and compile and run this program. So the first time I ran the program, it took me 21 spins to hit the jackpot. Second time, it took me 168. Third time, 382. This time, only 27. This time, only 14. This time, only 33. Wow, only 8 this time. That's cool. 87, 63, 238, 392. So this is how you do the slot machine program from the book, but using an object-oriented approach. Now, a lot of homework from the book, I have additional instructions because I want my students to start practicing taking an object-oriented approach to a lot of these programs.